and gentlemen, whether it is my medical test results or whether it's me trying to look for a healthy meal to help me cut some weight, AI is where I go to even before Google these days. And what we're seeing is AI is taking over almost every aspect of our life, or at least has a role to play in it, right? And when it comes to my professional career as a lawyer, I really feel that AI is making bounds and changing inherently the way we work as lawyers. And to better understand this, better understand not only how it has changed the legal profession, both in Pakistan, but also across the globe, and how it's going to change us in the future. And what is the new young lawyer who's entering the marketplace? How is the world, what is the ecosystem, the legal ecosystem that he's going to be facing? To discuss this, I have with me Mr. Shahzar Elahi. Shahzar is the founder and CEO of Enablify AI, which is a AI training advisory and solutions firm. Shahzar also delivers the Generative AI for Lawyers Masterclass, which has already trained over 500 lawyers across Pakistan, including, and not just lawyers, but also judges, including judges of the High Court. Shahzar, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Shahzar, I wanted to begin by asking you, what does AI adoption look like globally for really the legal profession? I know there's a lot of divergence between, law as it's practiced in Pakistan, law as it's practiced in the UK or the US, but generally, if you could give me an idea of AI adoption in this sector.
So, the trends are scary. Sure. What's happening around the world is, and I say this in every single training that I conduct, the very ground beneath the lawyers is shifting and they don't really know it.
Wow.
Particularly in jurisdictions such as ours. If I was to give you a couple of statistics, right? There was a survey conducted by in the GCC, and it was a sample of around 1,500, 2,000 lawyers. In January 2024, around 54% of lawyers were exploring what AI looks like. Exploring.
Understood.
By December 2025, so it's almost 2 years. By December 2025, 68% of lawyers were using AI daily or hourly in their workflows.
Wow.
We're going through what has been documented as the greatest technological adoption in the history of mankind.
Wow.
Like the printing press was not adopted this fast. The Industrial Revolution took its time. The internet. I mean, the internet came around sometime in the 80s and the 90s in Pakistan.
Yeah.
We remember getting our first connections in the late 1990s, mid 1990s, right? So, but when you talk about artificial intelligence, you're looking at adoption rates of more than 70-80%, even though it's not institutional adoption. But even somebody using ChatGPT, I mean, 800 million users is quite a big number. Absolutely. In 2 years since launch. So that's the adoption we're looking at.
Wow, that's really impressive. And what do you think is the overall impact? Like, what are the results that we're seeing from this? Is this benefiting the legal profession? Is it causing issues? How do you see this developing?
So I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why this is a slightly more nuanced topic. For anybody that is graduating law school today, the job market has fundamentally shifted. Has fundamentally shifted. And allow me to sort of explain how that happens.
Yeah.
When you graduate out of law school, no matter what law school you graduate out of, whether it's Harvard or it's LUMS in Pakistan, no partner of a law firm is going to allow you to go and represent a client in a court. Not even a district court. You're not there yet.
Yeah, understood.
Right? It doesn't matter what your graduation sort of, what your GPA looked like. It doesn't matter how good of a speaker you are. At the end of the day, for the first 2 to 2.5 to 3 years in a law firm or even as an in-house legal counsel, you're particularly doing 5 or 6 different kinds of tasks, but 70% of it is drafting and research. That's how you're supporting, right? Now, here's the thing. When I teach or I give lectures on artificial intelligence, particularly in law schools, I open with a custom GPT that I've built for myself. Right? It's called Shahzar's Legal Assistant. I put in a prompt. My client has gotten into a hit and run accident in Banigala, Islamabad. He's in the hospital. He's critical. And he's asking for an FIR in Urdu language with all relevant laws. And I want you to draft it now. In 6 seconds, what comes out is the level of Urdu that you cannot expect the majority of law graduates to write. And I have challenged this on multiple occasions, and not a single, even senior criminal lawyers have said not a single law quotation was wrong. This is a custom GPT. And then I prompt, just to show them how dangerous AI adoption is for them, for law students who are graduating. I put in a prompt saying, okay, now I want you to draft a constitutional petition in the Islamabad High Court against the lack of stop signs in Islamabad. And what comes out really blows people's mind, because in 2 years you can't expect a law student to get there where he's drafting constitutional petitions independently.
Absolutely.
AI does it for you in $20 a month. Now the question is, if you're a law graduate who's from LUMS or NUST or Beria or any of the law schools, and you go to a law firm, you're expecting 45, 50,000 to be paid to you. And if you're a good law firm who's very transparent, like a Juris, you'll be paid 70,000, right? And now the law firms have a choice to make. Should we skip entirely on the hiring and focus on people with experience who can help us go to court and actually help us with the cases, and spend $20 a month on research and drafting? Or should we invest in this person? And this is a time investment and a money investment.
Absolutely, yeah.
So if I was to quantify, there has been a 40% reduction, and this is a report by Revelio Labs, which was in partnership with McKinsey. 40% reduction in the job vacancy postings across multiple platforms. So LinkedIn, Brightspire, etc., etc. 40% in a year and a half.
My God,
entry level
is ringing the death knell for.
That's the thing. If any law student right now expects to add value to a law firm more than artificial intelligence at that level, it's impossible.
It's clearly, yeah.
So yeah, without AI enablement, law students that are graduating today, they need to be scared.
Yeah, I mean, that's really eye-opening. I had no idea of those statistics. But tell me something. Are we seeing a shrinking of this? I mean, it seems like this is going to be leading to a permanent shrinking of how many lawyers you have in the market or things along those lines. So then what's the point of doing law? Like, should people still be in the legal profession, or is there something that they can do to make themselves stand out, be better, more, likely to be hired by these things? Or should people just, diversify their thing, because they're not going to be, classical lawyers in that sense?
Oh, absolutely. You see, very interesting question. A couple of things. Okay. I'm going to start with, where the future is heading to.
Absolutely.
We're heading to a future. So the founders of Andreessen Horowitz, for example, said this a year ago, that the future belongs to one-person law firms. One-person law firms.
Wow.
You have a senior experienced person, and under him you have a team of AI agents. One does drafting, the other does research, one does quality assurance, one prepares all of your manuals. All you need to do is sort of print and go to court. And especially all of the contractual work, especially work that in-house counsels do and commercial lawyers do, all of that is 100% doable by just a single plugin called the Claude's legal plugin that they announced a year ago, and the stock market and the legal tech stocks went like skydiving.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. Now here's the thing, right? So Andreessen Horowitz said this around a year ago. 2 weeks ago, a lawyer called Zach Shapiro posted an article on LinkedIn which had around 7 million views, saying, I run a one-person law firm. And he explained his entire process and his team of AI agents. Now, to answer your question, we are moving towards a direction where a single person, an experienced lawyer, a good law firm partner, if he knows or she knows how to leverage artificial intelligence, will literally be able to create a multi-million-dollar law firm just with 1 or 2 people. That is the reality now. But here's where the profession ought to be heading towards, and here is where lawyers ought to be investing in terms of their skills. Now, what can AI do really well? AI can do anything that is logic-based, anything that is 2 plus 2, anything that requires logical thinking, analytical thinking, AI does extremely well. Now, what happens when you go to court? What happens when you go into litigation? Essentially, the entire decision of a court rests on 4 different factors. It rests on what the law says. It rests on what precedence says. It rests on your arguments, and it rests on your evidence, essentially. If artificial intelligence is infinitely more well-read on law, has read all precedents, has the ability to pattern recognize between your evidence and evidence in similar cases before, and can analyze your arguments against cases that have happened before, the probability of it actually making a better decision without human bias is actually more. So in litigation, you have a greater risk of lawyers losing ground because AI is going to take it over. And I don't just say this, this is not an opinion, this is a fact, because the Abu Dhabi government around a year ago launched the world's first paperless, lawyerless court. Lawyerless court. Wow. Paperless court. So all I need to do is email all of my evidence, email all of my arguments that I could create myself to an email address, or fill in a form on their website, and it'll do exactly that. It'll go back to its knowledge base. It's going to go through all laws in the UAE. It's going to go through all of similar cases and give me a judgment. If I want to appeal it, I go to a human court. This is happening. Now, where can lawyers actually make the most significant difference? You see, in Pakistan and in the majority of global South jurisdictions, we have a tendency to confuse lawyering with litigation.
Okay. Yeah.
Lawyers are not meant only for litigation. You, as a lawyer, are trained to resolve disputes. Litigation is one of such forums. Here's what AI can't do. AI cannot read the room. If I ask you a question and you react to it, AI will not be able to tell why that has happened, right? Even if artificial intelligence develops the capacity, computer vision is there, right? It's a technology that's coming up. Let's say there's a screen in the room,
expressions and whatnot.
Will you, as a human being, trust a machine over a human to actually tell it your interests behind the claim? What I'm pointing towards is mediation.
I see.
You see, if you've seen Suits, right? I give this analogy. I think the lawyers in Suits are not poor. They're doing pretty well for themselves.
Yeah.
And bad analogy probably, but the majority, almost 98% of the disputes born in the United States of America are resolved at settlement phase, right? Settlement lawyers are technically a lot more valuable than trial lawyers. Why? Because if I'm a business or if I'm a particular client and I have to wait 15 years in a court of law, especially in Pakistan, now with mediation laws there, I would actually pay a settlement lawyer or a mediation advocate more to resolve my case.
And get over and done.
And get over it. Even if I have to lose a bit of value, because it's better than losing the value that I would over the course of 15 years. So lawyers need to AI enable themselves and B, seriously consider mediation. It's relatively future proof. I will for decades to come not trust a machine or a screen with the interests behind a complicated dispute. So that's what ideally should be happening.
That's very interesting. Tell me something. Look, we also see, some of we've heard the horror stories and the times where people have made up cases and there's been hallucination, they've used ChatGPT and then the bars, suspended their license or done something like that.
Yes.
How are we, in a world that is continuously adopting and moving towards more AI adoption, how do we reduce this thing? How, for example, in the AI agent that you use, your legal assistant, how do we not have hallucinations?
I'm going to get a little complicated. This is going to get a little technical,
please,
but I'm going to try to explain this I'm not a lawyer, by the way. I'm also not a technical sort of specialist. This is everything that I've learned through my own practice and trial and error. Now, here's the thing, right? If you want to, so why are these hallucinations happening? These hallucinations are happening for a bunch of different reasons, some of which are jurisdictions such as Pakistan or majority of the global South jurisdictions do not have digitized court data. It's not very readily available. So when these large language models are training themselves, when companies like OpenAI invest in training ChatGPT or Anthropic invests in training Claude, you get data from specialized companies that specialize in getting this training data to you. Now, the majority of legal data in Pakistan is actually missing. I mean, if you were to go to a high court website tomorrow to get all precedents of that particular high court, would you be able to find it? It's gatekept behind paywalls and websites that only...
And being manual.
Being manual, right?
That's the biggest challenge, I think.
One, data is inherently missing in LLM training. So that's the first thing.
Okay.
The second thing is LLMs are basically, so more than being intelligent, they're essentially really good at pattern recognition. And they usually miss patterns. It happens all the time. The fake cases that come up, and the reason for it's so significant that the Ministry of Law in Singapore had to come up with guidelines for using ChatGPT for lawyers, right? It's very significant. India has just come up with a statement yesterday that this is not merely an error on part of an LLM. The lawyers will have to be held accountable for fake cases. It's a serious issue.
Oh, wow.
Now, how do you get over this, right? So there's technical things that you do. So, and this is something that we teach. So in the generative AI for lawyers masterclass that we give at Enablify, 500 plus lawyers in Pakistan have graduated from it. All in-house legal counsels of SECP, Pakistan Stock Exchange, House of Habib, Jazz, Ministry of Law and Justice, federal prosecution. So there's been a lot of interest in people trying to understand how we use AI. So there's a couple of things that you can do. One, you build your own static knowledge-based retrieval augmented generative system. So let me break it down. There's a lot of words. So for example, custom GPTs on ChatGPT. What happens is LLMs have a huge amount of memory that they rely on, or a knowledge base that they're trained on. What you need to do is really limit that knowledge base. And you need to tell an LLM, listen, this is a serious task. I'm building my own knowledge base. Now this knowledge base includes all of the laws, all of the cases, precedents, etc., and you need to really pull that out. When I ask you for an answer, not general chat and chat GPT, the custom GPT, I want you to remain in the limits of this knowledge that I've built for you and not go to your own memory. Only go to your own memory if you find something here.
So you feed it with the data set or the case law that you know is reliable, that you've
Absolutely. So that's the first thing, right? 2, it would be criminal to only be using one LLM and one technology. That's not how you do. You oscillate between technologies. So let me give you an example. In Pakistan, one of the best legal research AI tools that I have come up with, I have come across, is AI Attorney. So AI Attorney is trained on 450,000 cases since 1947 till February 2026, 450,000.
Pakistani case.
Pakistani case. It's a Pakistani entity based in Islamabad that's created this. Okay. In addition to 70,000 UK reported judgments and 25,000 Indian Supreme Court judgments.
Wow.
In addition to this, it has every single law that has ever been passed at a federal or provincial level in Pakistan, and it's trained on all notifications. So now you have a RAG that has already been built for you, and you'll be surprised at the subscription cost, by the way. It costs 6,000 rupees to subscribe to this, the premium version of this. The base version is priced at around 2500 rupees, like 2,500 rupees.
Wow.
So what happens is, all you need to do is type in, for example, mediation, and it will give you a list of all cases where mediation has been talked about. It will summarize it for you. It will summarize the key points of arguments. It will tell you what cases have been cited in this judgment and which cases have cited this judgment. And then you take all of that data, you go to the chat section and you start chatting away your legal strategy. Or once you have these cases, download them, take them to your GPT, and in your GPT, don't ask it to rely on its own knowledge base. Ask it to rely on the laws that you've identified. So you really have to use multiple. So there's ways around it.
Yeah,
but that's why training is important, right?
No, absolutely. That's critical. Shahzar, this was really helpful. I mean, very eye-opening, and I had no idea of a lot of this stuff. But I want to bring it to Pakistan. Okay, we have a particular legal culture here, okay, which is very unique in how it deals with the law, how it applies the law. But I think also in terms of technology adoption, we are, I would, even go as far as saying, we're resistant to change. The bar, the bench in Pakistan. So I wanted to ask you, how are we in Pakistan here adopting this? We've heard the international figures, but domestically, how are you seeing that? And secondly, we are a very, offline, hard copy based legal culture, right?
We are.
And how is that really going to be a problem or a hurdle for really AI adoption like that?
I think the biggest, and I mean, all respect to the Honorable Supreme Court of Pakistan, but when I have to tell people just how outdated we are, I tell them to look at the recordings that Kanundan is doing of live proceedings. When a lawyer walks up to the rostrum and he's quoting the law, let's say it's a bench of 5 or 6, right? 6 people are going to go with books in their hands up to the bench, open those books and point their fingers to where the lawyer is reading from, so that the judge knows, oh, acha yahan se padha.
My God.
I mean, that's how outdated we are. We've hired people to open books in front of our benches. But you see, this is not unique to Pakistan. Like I'm very hopeful for 2 reasons. I'm very hopeful because my own experience of training in Pakistan has been 500 plus lawyers. I mean, nobody forced them to learn artificial intelligence. It's become one of the most popular AI courses in law.
Wow.
The reason these people they've signed up themselves, and it's usually the chief legal officers, the head of the in-house legal counsels, or the partners of the law firms that have asked all of their sort of juniors to be trained. So I see that a sense of urgency is being created. But you're absolutely right. Look, and it's not just in law, by the way. In countries like Pakistan or similar global south jurisdictions, tech adoption usually happens with a delay of around 5 to 10 years, right? So really, Facebook, for example, came out in 2004. We made our first accounts on Facebook in 2008, 9, 10, right? So we're usually late, but that's fine. In this and in all previous technologies, it was okay for you to be late. If you don't know how to use email in a system that is otherwise manual, fine, you'll get work done. This is game changing because the adoption rates are crazy. I just told you, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, a lot of lawyers are going to be left behind. I'm going to be very honest with you. They're going to be left behind. And I'm specifically talking about large law firms. You see, commercial practice in Pakistan is in the hands of 20, 30 different law firms. They control 80% of the large commercial litigation in Pakistan, right?
Yeah.
The majority of them are based across KLI, Karachi, Lahore, Islamabad. Within those firms, firms that adopt artificial intelligence are going to have an immediate and long-term advantage over firms that even delay this decision by 1 year, because the models are changing that rapidly, right? For a normal lawyer, for the majority of your lawyers in the bar, they probably have 5 to 6 more good years before people realize that this is an advantage that sets me apart by miles. And especially when you have young students come in who are naturally using ChatGPT and Claude in their universities, they are going to outperform these lawyers. And the market's really fundamentally going to shift. So for senior lawyers, for founding partners right now, for example, of law firms, for senior in-house counsels, I mean, this is the time to ring an emergency bell. And for them, and for the lawyers that are graduating today, for everybody in the middle, they still probably have five good years.
Wow, that's quite interesting. I think another element of this is certainly judicial adoption.
Oh yeah,
right. And I think it's also more critical for the common man, because the judgments that a judge authors, he delivers, their impact is really going to impact the precedent that is set, the people who are affected by this, their rights, and all of those things. Lawyers for themselves, I mean, we're talking about 5 or 6 years they still have, it's not going to affect them. But ultimately, it's a financial decision for them. It's an economic decision that will impact them. And of course, quality of their profession.
Yeah.
But for judges, this is an impact on society. This is an impact on the development of the law and on so many other things. So, could you give me an idea of how that is taking place, if at all? And if not, then where do you think it needs to?
So I'll tell you what's been happening at the High Court, at the Superior Court level, right? Okay. Justice Mansoor Ali Shah, around 6 months ago, authored a judgment. It was a rent dispute that had been pending for 9 years. Okay. It was escalated to the Supreme Court, and while disposing of that case, while authoring the judgment, he wrote 6 pages on artificial intelligence. And when you read Justice Mansoor Ali Shah Saab's 6 pages on AI, you feel as if an AI expert has written those cases. Wow. That judgment, So very active on LinkedIn, I saw lawyers of the Karnataka High Court in India debating that judgment.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. So the judicial precedence is there. The Supreme Court has already said that you do not have a choice but to adopt artificial intelligence, of course responsibly, because it saves you time. It saves the process and the procedure a lot of time. That's the first thing. The second, the National Judicial Policy Making Committee, the NJPMC, has already decided that tech adoption and digitization has to be on the agenda. Unfortunately, there are very few people from within the Supreme Court that understand what AI is. AI is not your typical ERP. AI is not your typical case management system. There's 2 ways to deal with it, right? You either build an AI native system that actually helps you with the sufficient guardrails, that helps you understand and experience the power of artificial intelligence. And the other way is to stick AI on different things of a legacy system.
Grafting karke.
That's the thing, right? The latter is always going to fail. The favorite example of this is a chatbot. Kya karna chatbot bana do yaar. Arey yaar. So the latter is always going to fail. Because if you have your legacy systems and you have people thinking along those ERP, typical Bosida case management system guidelines, you will not be able to adopt AI in the way that it will actually benefit you. It'll be millions of dollars wasted.
Wow.
Right? Now, there are some people, however, that are trying to advise the relevant people, and there is a lot of interest in the Supreme Court. It's just that it's taking a bit of time, and that usually is the case with the judiciary and the bureaucracy, right? Now, at a high, I think here are the lowest hanging fruit that AI can immediately deliver on.
And this is for the judiciary?
This is for the judiciary.
Okay.
You have cases in Pakistan, and not just in Pakistan, similar jurisdictions, where you have multiple differing judgments coming from multiple courts.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah. Same case, same section, same law, 2 different judgments. And now the beneficiaries are confused. What happens if a similar dispute happens in the future, and then it has to be escalated to the Supreme Court for a final verdict on that, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And even at that level, we see differing judgments. If you had a system that automatically was able to correlate judgments, and a judge drafting a judgment would be immediately able to get information on a judgment that has already been authored, and then look at its merit and decide if a similar judgment is there, so that you have coherence between judgments. That's the easiest use of artificial intelligence, right? 2.
Yeah.
When a judge has to, on average, read this much of case files before they walk into a court. That's the lowest hanging fruit of artificial intelligence. Build a system that has confidentiality guardrails, encrypted systems within itself that allows a judge to reduce their preparation time before they come and adjudicate from days to literally hours. Summaries in front of them. Another low-hanging use case, the one I started with. Imagine a lawyer sort of explaining sort of a case or arguing in front of a bench in the Supreme Court or a High Court. Instead of their law clerks or the staff having to pull out books manually and the judges have to flip through pages, bhai aap kahan se padh rahe hain? How many times have you heard this, right?
Yeah,
imagine you having a system where whatever is being said by the lawyer is automatically being referenced in screens, and the text is automatically highlighted with the relevant section numbers and page numbers and the relevant sort of book numbers, and the judges do not have to make the extra effort to flip through pages. Everything would be recorded, and the judges would actually be able to pay their full attention not to the text in front of them, but what the lawyer is saying, the arguments itself. These are the lowest. I can't even tell you how cheap these things are.
Absolutely, and I mean, there's one question. A lot of this can just happen today. Like literally, you could, if the decision taking exactly,
we could come up with 4 or 5 systems within the next 48 hours.
Wow. So that's very interesting. But is there some essential groundwork infrastructure that needs to be developed to implement some of these? Like, for example, the digitization element that you were saying. Data. Okay.
Pakistan has missed one of the biggest losses that we've incurred as a country, which we are now going to face when we actually AI adopt, no matter what our Ministry of IT says. The biggest challenge is going to be data. You see, when you miss the digitization boat, what you essentially missed was years and years of effort that had to be put in to make sure that everything retrospectively was scanned in a machine readable format and stored in ways that you could be able to deploy AI systems today on top of that.
Yes.
Right. And there are the majority of businesses that I consult on AI, the majority of organizations that I consult on AI are still running on paper. That is it doesn't matter if you're a blue chip company listed on the Pakistan Stock Exchange. They're still running on paper. There are departments, for example, administration, HR, that are still running on paper. So what needs to be done right now, the biggest challenge you have is not the models. The biggest challenge you have is not capacity to develop these systems. You have indigenous capacity. Graduates from NUST, graduates from FAST that are now graduating with bachelors in artificial intelligence are competing against AI experts and engineers from Scandinavia and from Europe and from the US. That's how good their quality is. I've seen it. Our developers are from these institutions. It's not about capacity. It's not about models. And also it's not about over-reliance either, right? So sure, one could argue, yaar, ye jo AI models aa rahe hain, they're coming from the US. You're talking about ChatGPT, you're talking about Claude. Who's asking you to use ChatGPT and Claude? Why don't you pick up a really good open source model, fine-tune it, and use it? I mean, you have a plethora of options available right now. The biggest thing missing, there's 2 things. One is intent. 2 is understanding. But more than both of these, because it's relatively easier to convince somebody, is the missing data piece. That needs to be, and companies like AI Attorney have actually put in a lot of money and a lot of effort to digitize that for you already. So there are also institutions that have done this work for you.
I see.
It's just that, I'm going to be bluntly honest. I don't know if this is going to be aired, but our bureaucracy and our judiciary has a tendency to hire favorites over and over again.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, contracts go.
I'm going to make sure this is aired. Don't worry.
Oh, please, thank you.
That's good.
So contracts go to the same people. Those same people were trained on languages like CS languages that have become outdated. You can't expect them to. Sure, they understand. I'm not saying they don't understand AI. Sure, they do understand AI, but they do not follow the developments or are able to deploy it as well as somebody who's basically grown up witnessing this.
Yeah.
Right. So I think
more of an AI native, if you will.
That's the thing. You see, and you're spending millions of rupees developing these systems that are not going to give you an advantage. This is going to be sunk cost if you keep on going like this.
Wow. Yeah. That's very interesting. Shahzar, I want to touch upon the amazing work that you're doing with Enablify. But before that, I just wanted to talk about regulation.
Yes.
Because we know that there can be abuse. Right?
Oh, yeah.
But not just abuse, there's also, I think, a loss of skills, perhaps.
Yes.
Right? For example, I remember when doing law school that there were some lawyers, uski drafting bothered or his drafting is, brilliant and he. Is this a skill that we're going to lose? Because the first thing somebody does is they put points in and they put it into ChatGPT and say, draft me, 3 paragraphs or summarize this into that. Are we losing these key skills? What about analysis, for example? Yeah. Are we losing the ability to analyze as we used to perhaps in the past? how do you compensate for that, or how do you deal with that? And then we'll move on to regulation, like official regulations.
That's a really good question, right? And here's my answer to this, and this is an opinion, because AI has not been long enough for anybody to be able to say this hypothesis is correct. Everybody is hypothesizing, so am I. You see, what's happening is there's something called a moat. You build moats around castles.
Yeah, absolutely.
So senior lawyers have moats. Somebody like Amir Bilal Sufi Saab, I mean, I don't think anybody competes with him in Pakistan when it comes to international law and conventions, right? That's his moat. That's his understanding, right? Imagine him building an AI system for himself that is not just grounded on publicly available data, laws that are publicly available, etc., etc. All of those things are publicly. Imagine him training AI models on his drafts.
Wow.
On his research, right? And then
on the hundreds, thousands of articles he's written, on his thinking.
Now that AI agent that is only made for Amir Bilal Sufi Saab and only based on his understanding is going to outperform any other AI fine-tuned model that is trained on anybody else's, because their level was just not at par.
I see.
You get what I'm saying? Somebody who's an expert in tax law, if you're a good lawyer of tax, you'd be able to build moat around yourself. You build an AI system using your tools. You don't have to put in confidential information, remove the name of the clients, remove all unique identifiers, but the drafting itself, and you can build AI systems in a way that they do not information does not leak. It's now become, it's increasingly becoming secure. You have GDPR, for example, coming out in EU. So all of these models have had to comply. So you see, I don't think skills of lawyers are lost. Lawyers that have been able to build credibility and an experience in particular fields will be able to outperform everybody else with artificial intelligence a lot more than without it. The risk of those lawyers becoming outdated is more if they do not become AI enabled. Makhdoom Ali Khan, for example, arbitration, right? I mean, come on. Imagine him building an AI system around him and his firm that understands arbitration, international arbitration, as well as he does. I mean, you can't really know. I mean, I don't know which other lawyer is going to be able to beat that.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting way of looking at it. Also, how you can monetize that.
Because, absolutely.
You have certain specific expertise. You put in decades, years, if not decades of your blood, sweat, and tears into honing your skill there, and then turning it into an agent that can further facilitate you there. The issue is, what if somebody steals this? Is it possible that somebody could get their hands on this and then start acting like one of the top lawyers?
So that's the thing, right?
Or gain that experience.
There's two ways to build AI systems. One is, you have these models such as ChatGPT, and you have Anthropic, and you have they're as safe as your Google Drive.
Okay.
I mean, the majority of lawyers still use Google Drive.
I think it's pretty safe, right?
So, utna to safe ye hai. Sahi hai.
That's true.
But now there are you can build and you need to invest, right, in security guardrails. Of
course.
Encrypted data. What models are you using? Are you using models that do not inherently use whatever chats that you're doing to train themselves? Are you enabling continuous learning, or are you using static, for example, open source models? So it all depends upon the tech that you're using. It is absolutely possible to protect and secure against data leaks. But at the end of the day, this is technology.
Okay, and forgive me for my ignorance here, but can we do this completely offline? Like, do we have to go to the ChatGPT service to do the analysis?
That's exactly what a locally hosted open source model is. You can run it on a really powerful laptop.
Really?
You disconnect the Wi-Fi, and tomorrow Wi-Fi goes away. Pakistan, right? Bijli chali gayi. And you're still running your LLM. You're still running your ChatGPT, not ChatGPT. You're running your AI. So you see, that's the problem, right? People are using AI. I'm not saying they're not, but their understanding of AI is limited to ChatGPT. ChatGPT is one company, one use case. You have locally. That's what we help businesses do. There's a lot of businesses that come to us, be like, we don't want to use ChatGPT. We don't want to use the cloud. We do not want to put our data on the internet. Fine, don't. Do you have servers? Yes, we have servers. Do you have on-premises servers? Yes, we do. All right, let's host an entire LLM on your server. Like Wi-Fi bhi chala gaya, wo phir bhi chalega.
Wow.
Possible.
Yeah. That's very interesting. You had earlier mentioned GDPR and data protection and those issues, right? That is a critical issue here. If domestically we are to produce some form of regulation for AI, and I feel something, I do think that something is in the works on this. How can we protect data especially when it comes to sensitive data for Pakistanis, if, beyond just the legal realm, but like the government starts using ChatGPT using AI models, how can we ensure that this data is protected? Is it the same things that you had mentioned, that you put in those guardrails, keep it localized?
Data centers have become an issue of national security.
Okay.
Right, because sovereignty.
Of course.
How many data centers do we have in Pakistan?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, almost none. Right.
Okay. Wow.
Now, here's the thing, right? All of these data centers. So let me just explain. You have your laptop and you put in something really heavy and you try to open that file and a sound comes on and the fan starts to turn on. You're like, what the hell just happened? That's basically the laptop consuming a lot of energy to open a very heavy file or read a ridiculous amount of data.
Yeah.
And it produces a lot of energy to perform that operation, and the fan turns on because it needs to cool itself, in layman terms, right? Data centers have hundreds and thousands of terabytes of information stored within them. That's the information and the knowledge base on which you train AI models.
Wow.
And to store that amount of data requires an immense amount of energy, right? And it requires an equally large amount of cooling power. So you're talking about water, you're talking about you get what I'm saying? So just to give you an example, Eric Schmidt, the former CEO of Google, said that if the United States, I think the US currently has around 13 nuclear power plants, 13, it says if we want to maintain our AI superiority in terms of China, we need to create in the next 5 years 90 nuclear power plants. So this is the energy that I'm talking about. You see Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk, and you see all of these people talking about building data centers on the moon and leveraging the sun's energy. You see China officially stating that we're going to build the world's first data center underwater. Why? Cooling. Wow. Are we having those conversations in Pakistan?
I think we're pretty far away from those conversations.
So you see, any AI policy needs to first address...
We need to build data centers on land first here.
We need to have land first and enough water, right? So there were pehli cheez. So you see, the thing is, I think the Ministry of IT and Telecom is doing some phenomenal work when it comes to giving Pakistan direction. I think the national AI policy is really good. It talks about AI upskilling 1 million people. There's organizations such as Atom Camp, for example, that are actively involved in teaching faculties around universities and bureaucrats in the Civil Services Academy. Wow. Work is happening. I'm not saying it's not. Ignite has a lot of these competitions. You see, these are all good, these are all fine, but these are things that come towards the end. The first thing that I need to think about as the government is how sovereign is my AI. Are the consultants that are working with me, where are those consultants from? I have a huge issue with this, right? What data centers am I leveraging? And where am I hosting all of this, right? Gul Ahmed Energy has just announced that they're building the first data center in Karachi. Gul Ahmed Energy.
Okay, wow.
Now, we need to see what the mechanics of that are going to be like, right? Sovereign AI should be the first priority. So you build systems, you build enough storage space, energy systems to be able to power your AI infrastructure locally without having to rely on data centers in the GCC, without having to rely on data centers in the US. You just saw what happened 2 days ago when Iran bombed the data center of Amazon.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
They just did that. It's a risk. We live in a very
and that had but that impacted Claude, and that impacted a number of.
It did impact AWS services, but of course you have backups and everything, so they were able to get them up and running. But again, it's a risk, right? We're living to quote the Canadian Prime Minister, we're living through times of rupture. In these times of rupture, where everybody is looking internally to build their indigenous capacity, are you really saying that you're going to leverage external data centers to build your AI capacity? That does not seem to me like a good direction. When it comes to upskilling, when it comes to building solutions for different businesses, leave that to the private sector. That is not the government's job.
Okay.
The government's job simply needs to be that they need to ensure that our AI is sovereign. Tomorrow, I as Enablify should have the option to host my AI systems that I built for, let's say, a blue chip company on a data center located in Karachi using models that are built out of Pakistan. That's where I want to get towards. I can't get to it without a ridiculous amount of investment, and that's where the government comes in. That should be the government priority.
Wow, absolutely. I wanted to get to the work that you're doing with Enablify. This is a very unique organization, and when I heard about the work that you're doing, I really wanted to have you here so you could discuss some of these things. So Enablify is helping organizations. I mean, this is my understanding, helping organizations really get up to speed with AI and getting their people there. Yes. Could you explain what you do and how you do that?
Let me explain this as simply as I possibly can. You're here. You're AI curious. You're hearing about a lot of these things. You're hearing about models changing every day. You want to adopt it. You don't know what governance systems to adopt, what model should, how do I create a team structure within my organization that will allow me to adopt AI? How do I upskill what model to use? So you're curious. But you have two emotions going through you. You're either scared, which is fear, or you have a fear of missing out. You know this has cost advantages. You know this is going to propel my business and give me an unbelievable competitive edge. But you're curious. You're not enabled yet.
Absolutely.
Enablify helps to take you from AI curiosity to AI enablement. That's our job.
Wow.
So we're that step one for organizations. And so what we have is a training-led deployment approach. So here's our thesis, right? AI is a top-down decision. It is not a bottom-up decision, right? Social media, for example, bottom-up decision, right? Your managers start using it, associates start using it. Oh, it's cool. Oh, we're getting a lot of traction. Use it more. Bottom-up. AI, systems, infrastructure, guardrails, usage, right? Top-down. Now, what we have seen, and we worked with organizations such as the Indus Hospital, UBL Insurers, Gallup Pakistan, RISC, Pakistan's largest national food security organization, and we're consulting a lot of other entities in the government as well. Here is what we have seen. CEOs, C-level executives, board members, director level. These are the people that are still not sure what AI is. Okay. Their usage of AI is still limited to using a free version of ChatGPT.
Okay, wow.
If they don't use AI, they will never be able to understand the use cases that it has in their organization. So what we do is that we come in and we're like, forget about deploying anything. Upskill yourself. Allow us to do a one-day training program, and we call it the Intelligent Leaders Program. So the Intelligent Leader Generative AI for Business program is where business leaders are suddenly exposed to very low cost available frontier models and AI tools with use cases and demos that they can see divided by function. HR, this tool, this is what it does. For example, resume screening. Your HR takes 11 days to screen 250 resumes. We built a system for an organization called the Legal Aid Society. Their HR managed to screen 300 resumes in 4 hours, right? Cost advantage, time advantage.
Yeah.
So we show them demos. Then we show them what a roadmap looks like. This is what an ideal adoption roadmap for your organization looks like. And it does not start with IT. IT comes at the very end, right? And then we teach them how to build a team structure within functions to help deploy that AI. After this 1 or 2 or 3 day training program, we feel that CEOs become a lot more confident. And then
so this program is essentially demystifying all the preconceptions that you have about
the fears of artificial intelligence. This is a program that allows them to understand its power and allows them to map their own use cases. You see, IT, for example, you run a law firm. The way to deploy AI is not to call your IT manager and be like, do something in AI, which is what 90% of organizations are doing, right? Kuch karo yaar, AI mein kuch karo. Nahin. AI has to be used by a particular function. It has to be designed by that same function.
Absolutely.
Because that function knows what my bottlenecks are. That function knows where my monotonous, very time-consuming tasks are. They're the ones who know what my end use case is going to look like. So you have that team working with either an AI expert, this is where we come in, and then their IT team, which is only responsible for deployment, guardrail, security, right? That's Absolutely. The merger. So that's what we're teaching businesses, and there seems to be a lot of interest in this.
Okay, but this is your C-suite level executive. Do you have trainings for say, the average lawyer?
No, absolutely. So we have a generative AI for lawyers training program,
okay,
which is for all sorts of lawyers, right? So okay. we've trained more than 500 people in Pakistan, 500 lawyers, wow. CLOs right down to associates, and even law students, right? And it tells you how to, you remember that custom GPT that I was telling you?
Yeah,
we teach you how to build your own.
Achha,
right? We teach you how to use Claude. We teach you how to build your own custom GPT, how to have your own RAG model with a static knowledge base, and start working on it from tomorrow. It costs you $20 a month. That training program became so popular that I was invited by the East Africa Law Society to deliver a webinar that was attended by 800 people. Now I'm delivering an in-person generative AI for masterclass in Nairobi in March. So it's spreading. Why? Because lawyers are curious and they just want an easy, non-technical program. So that's what we've designed. So we have training programs for all sectors. Businesses and corporates are separate. Then we have a particular one for development sector organizations. We have one for the government. We have one for lawyers. But at the end of the day, it's usually the businesses that then ask us to come back and be like, fine, we now understand. help us now deploy across the organization. So that's where our solutions, role comes in.
Absolutely. There was a very interesting thing that I think you shared with me was AI on retainer.
Yeah.
Right. Could you explain that concept, because it seems fascinating? Where at times you need AI specialists to guide you or advise you on something like that.
Yes.
And you just don't have it on hand. You can't Google it or ask ChatGPT itself for it. So could you tell me what
Absolutely.
that
So
is?
the AI for the concept behind this was every organization has a lawyer on retainer. Every person almost has a lawyer on retainer.
Yeah.
You get stuck. You pick up the phone. You're like, what do I do? And you pay a very nominal annual fee to
or
have
has a
somebody
relative,
on retainer. Relative.
right? In my case, which becomes
so. What we wanted, and what's the gap that we saw in the market is that a lot of these companies are not investing in AI because it is a sizable investment, but at this point in time, they just want somebody they can talk to when a new model comes in.
Okay.
How can I use this? What does this model do? Right? I'm running into this. Can this workflow be now? If I charge for an entire solution, like that's going to be unfair to the business. So what we decided was, let's create a retainership program. So let's say an organization has us on retainer for, let's say, $7,000 per annum. Right?
Okay.
In that $7,000 per annum, they're essentially getting a 24/7 advisor to help guide them through any of their questions, misunderstandings, governance-related concerns, model queries, etc., etc.
I see.
And if you feel like, okay, I feel like this is good, why don't you come in and sort of build something? Then we go in and build something. But it's sort of like having that advisor that you feel safe with, that if something new in AI happens, I want to know how it relates to me and how it impacts me. So that's the retainership program.
That's really interesting. And can we now, this is a little selfish as well. Like, what are some skills that I could pick up? And what are things that I can, utilize on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah.
I do use ChatGPT
Okay.
almost on a daily basis.
Okay.
Not just for, for drafting or for improving my thoughts, but also to get better outlines of what I want to draft and what I want to do. And we're seeing it being used everywhere. Yesterday I wrote a tweet on something, and somebody underneath it said Grok verify. Right? I was saying, look, I'm right here. You could just ask me, right? But so we're seeing a lot of these use cases. And could you explain to me what are some of the tools that we could use?
Oh, absolutely. So before I sort of tell you what the tools are, and I'll name those tools, right? One of the things that I want to say is that everybody needs to start using artificial intelligence because of something very powerful that I heard Richard Susskind say one day. Richard Susskind is the world's leading authority on AI and law. He advises the UK Supreme Court. He actually wrote books about the impact of AI on law in the 1990s. Wow. Before any one of us knew what he was. He's a so
90s AI was Terminator.
That's the thing,
that's
right?
What it was, right?
He's a King's Counsel. He's written a book called How to Think About AI. I think that book should be a starting point for everybody. How to think about AI. Okay. It is such a beautiful book written in such a non-technical manner that anybody would be able to grasp the fundamental concepts of how do I interact with this machine? How do I even think about interacting with this machine, right? It's beautiful. Now, he said something which really stuck with me, and I use it in all of my trainings. He said, the market is going to show no loyalty to our traditional ways of working. That's where we're heading to, right?
So there's no sentimentality?
No. Yeah. None. Like, oh, I'm a legacy lawyer. Good for you.
You are an antique.
You're an antique. You will be. I can come into a museum and talk to you about your good old days, but I will have no use of your legacy systems because of what is happening, right? Now, here's the thing. In the immediate, learn how to prompt.
Okay.
It does not matter whether you're using ChatGPT or you're using DeepSeek or you're using Claude or you're using Gemini. All of these are large language models, right? The language to build artificial intelligence is very complex, but the language to use artificial intelligence is natural language. It's English, right? Or now in some cases, Urdu. What you need to do is learn how to prompt. Now, what are the majority of people doing? And this is like $1 million tip. You talk to ChatGPT or Claude like you would do a Google search. Draft me a report. What was the population of Pakistan? Write me a letter. This is what you would do on Google. LLMs are like, imagine a person who has done 18, 19 different PhDs on multiple subjects. They are subject matter experts of everything. Why? Because they've read all of that knowledge base and understood it. And understood it enough to cross-reference and pattern recognize, right?
Wow, yeah.
But they're an intern that you've hired. No matter how intelligent they are, would you ever give interns unclear instructions?
No, you have to clarify exactly
Why?
what you want.
Because an intern is inexperienced in your line of work. They do not know how your systems operate. They don't know what you expect.
Your context.
Your context. That's why the art of prompting is the art of giving instructions. If you're naturally a person who's good at delegating and giving good instructions, you're going to be naturally good at using AI. So, for example, a couple of components. Context. This is who I am. This is what my company is. This is what we do. And this is what I am currently doing, for which I am seeking your help. Context. Then, role. All artificial intelligence has a general personality. LLMs have a general personality, but they have a unique ability to take up the role of anybody that you want them to. So if I was a marketing strategist, for example, if I was trying to create a marketing strategy using AI, I would say, assume the role of David Ogilvy, who's the...
Ogilvy Matthews, absolutely.
And now create this. Imagine you're that. Now what happens, the LLM approaches its data and gives its output in a very different way. Now it gives it as if they're a marketing strategist, not generalist, right? So context, role. Then you come to exactly the output that you want. I want you to draft a proposal, spend time. Then you give them samples. Every one of us has produced work that is best, that we consider best. The reason why you want to give AI that work is because you don't want AI to do or perform a task which is suboptimal below that level that you've already produced. You give it that sample of your best work, your best draft, anonymize it for all I care. But the reason why you give it is so that anything that comes out of artificial intelligence is actually better than that sample. You get what I'm saying?
And also stylistically it matches what the way you speak, right? The way you write.
Which is why a lot of problems come in when the responses are there, but you're just like, this is not quite me, right? It's because, how does it know? Like, it doesn't know who you are, so you need to tell it.
This is the biggest problem I've been facing because, you can put in something and then, I don't trust ChatGPT to be writing for me. At least not at this stage. So I get a lot of the ideas, but then the actual typing it, and that again is, it's a time-consuming task, right?
Yeah.
But I just feel that it's more authentic that
absolutely.
way. But so this is very interesting. You give it a particular role, you give it context, a role, and then you give it what you ask, but very clearly.
So what I'm trying to say is, there's a method to this, and you see, this is exactly what you would do with an intern.
Yeah, absolutely.
You give it context. You tell it, यार इस तरह से इसको approach करो. This is what I need from you. Here is my best work. Please make sure you follow this format. This is how you deal with an intern, right? Eventually, that intern will get good enough to be promoted. And why does he get promoted? Because he now understands how you work and gives you. That's exactly how LLMs treat them like human beings. Treat them like interns under you, right? Dave, do you know who Ray Dalio is? Ray Dalio is the founder of Bridgewater Associates, which is one of the best, one of the most successful investment firms.
Absolutely, yeah, right? Yeah. I've he's written a number of books as well. Yeah.
And he's the one who talks about the cycles of history. So every 80 years, the world shits itself. Right?
Is that what he says?
Well, those are my words, not his. But so here's the thing, right? Ray Dalio, all of the videos that are now coming in on YouTube is basically an AI agent mimicking his voice and creating that content based off of his... It sounds like Ray Dalio. It knows Ray Dalio's context, and it's so good that it's almost indifferentiable. Not in terms of... I'm not talking about voice and tone. I'm talking about the context and the level of nuance in that podcast. Now, why has that happened? I was listening to an interview of Ray Dalio, and he's like, I've been training my own AI avatar. So I'm creating a clone for myself.
Wow.
And now instead of producing like 60 pieces of content a week himself, he asks his agents to produce 600 pieces of content and now monetizes that on YouTube. Right? So AI learns. So one, prompting. Two, very quickly, Google Notebook LM. Google Notebook LM is one of the best tools if you want to create a complicated document into digestible parts. So Justice Mansoor Ali Shah, for example, came up with that judgment. I uploaded it on Google Notebook LM. It basically limits itself to that document as its source of truth. It does not go anywhere else.
Okay, wow.
You know what you can do with it? You can create a podcast in Urdu language, a conversational podcast between two people discussing that. You can click on the pause button, ask a question, and those two AI generated people will answer. Wow. And then you can create flashcards. You can create entire timelines. So I was delivering this lecture in LUMS one day, and I showed them that, look, this is what the judgment was. How long does it usually take you to create a timeline of a case? Like at least a day. And 6 seconds later, you had a timeline. Like, not just timeline. It was also parties and their relationships between each other.
Wow.
And the professor was just like, I spent a week doing this, right? So Google Notebook LM is phenomenal. It's free. You log in using your Gmail account.
Wow.
Right? So Google Notebook LM, if you want to make your own website, Lovable.dev is a $6 billion company based out of Sweden. You can create entire applications, websites for your law firm, case management systems, communication tools, and host them on the Lovable platform. You can build this for as low as $20 a month.
Wow.
Yeah. So these are all
amazing.
tools. So these are all things that we teach lawyers how to do in the masterclass that we do. But these are all tools that are generally available. So you can start using them from tomorrow.
That's really, really interesting. There's so much more that I wanted to discuss with you, especially about the future and nerd out on, where could AI take us and how it would
Terminate.
be. But again, there are parameters of this show that we must stick with. But perhaps offline, we'll discuss this. Shahzar, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thanks so much for having me. Thank you. It's a pleasure, talking to you always. And thank you very much for discussing this.
It's very kind of you. Thank you.
Thank you.